Today's lesson is Chapter 13, Problem 1B. I'm sharing with you Problem Chapter 13, Problem 1B. First of all, we want to make sure that we read the instructions. And so in this particular problem, we're going to be the Yosemite Bike Corporation, and we're going to manufacture mountain bikes, and we're going to distribute them through retail outlets in California, Oregon, Washington, and Washington. Yosemite Bike Corporation has declared the following annual dividends over a 6-year period ending December 31st of each year. In year one, $24,000 is the amount of the dividends that were declared. In year two, $10,000 is the amount of the dividends declared. Year three, $126,000 is the amount of dividends declared. In year four, $100,000 is the amount of dividends declared. In year five, $125,000 is the amount of dividends declared. And finally, in year six, $125,000 is declared in dividends. During the entire period, the outstanding stock of the company was composed of 25,000 shares of cumulative preferred 2% stock. That stock had a $90 par value, and 100,000 shares of common stock were issued at $4 par value. When we're looking at calculating dividends, and if we have preferred and common stock that we are selling to our stockholders, then there's some important definitions that we need to understand when we are looking at calculating dividends for each class of stock. So one of the important words that we need to understand is what outstanding stock means. Outstanding stock is the number of shares of stock that we have sold and is out on the market. Those sold shares are what we calculate dividends on. In other words, dividends are distributions of our net income. And if we have 25,000 shares of outstanding preferred stock, then those 25,000 shares, we're going to give dividends to the stockholders who are the owners of those shares of stock. If we have preferred stock in our company that we are selling, the preferred stockholders will get their share of dividends first before we give any dividends to the common shareholders. In this case, where we see cumulative preferred, the term cumulative preferred means that we will pay our preferred stockholders any dividends that are owed to them before we pay our common stockholders. So a lot of times you're going to hear the term dividends in arrears. And what that means is that the preferred stockholders will get all the dividends that are owed to them. We will pay them first, and then if there is any remaining dividends left over, we'll pay our common stockholders. Notice that this is 2% cumulative preferred stock that we're talking about. That 2% determines the rate of the dividends that we're going to give to our preferred stockholders. So in just a minute, we're going to calculate our dividends for our preferred stockholders. And this 2% is an important feature that we need to know before we calculate our preferred stock dividends. We also need to know the par value of the stock. What par value is just an amount that is assigned to our stock when the stock is created by the board of directors. It really doesn't mean anything about the value of the stock other than it's the amount that is printed on the face of the stock. We use this for something that we term legal capital in this chapter that you may have read about. And the legal capital of the company just means we have a certain amount that we have to hold back that we cannot pay dividends on. But par value, the only thing I really want you to know about par value is just an amount that's been attached to a share of stock. Notice that there are 100,000 shares of common stock. And notice that common stock has a $4 par value. Common stock are the stockholders that have voting rights in the company. And they will be paid their dividends after the preferred stockholders are paid. In this problem, we're mainly going to be calculating dividends. So in requirement number 1, we want you to determine the total dividends and the per share dividends that are declared on each class of stock for each of the 6 years. There were no dividends in arrears. And again, arrears means that those are dividends that were owed previously to our preferred stockholders. There were no dividends in arrears on January 1st. In year 1, we're going to summarize the data in tabular form. If required, they want you to round your answers to 2 decimal places. And if the amount in the boxes that we're recording is a 0, then enter a 0 in for that amount. You'll notice that they have started with a tabular form for our preferred dividends. In year 1, since there were no dividends in arrears, we don't have to worry about what we have owed to our stockholders. This $24,000 is the dividends that are going to be paid to our company or by our company. What we have to determine is how much of those dividends are going to be paid to our preferred stockholders and how much of those total dividends are going to be paid to our common stockholders. So the first thing that we need to do in order to determine how to declare the amount of dividends that are owed first to our preferred stockholders, we need to do some calculations for that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take our calculator, and what I want you to do is I want you to put in the total amount of the shares that are outstanding of the preferred stock. So we're going to put in 25,000. That's our total shares of preferred stock that we're going to give out of the dividends that we've declared to our stockholders that own preferred stock. We have to do that first because preferred stock has preference over the dividends, we pay our preferred stockholders first before we pay anything to our common stockholders. Notice that this preferred stock gives you a dividend rate of 2%. We also have the par value that's stated for that preferred stock. The 2% dividend rate and the $90 par value are used in determining the amount of dividends that we owe to our preferred stockholders. So once we have the 25,000 shares in of preferred stock, we're going to multiply those 25,000 shares times 2%. This will give us our dividend rate, and then we need to multiply that again by the $90 par value, and that will determine the total amount of dividends that we owe to our preferred stockholders. Notice the amount of the dividends that we owe to our preferred stockholders of $45,000 is more than the total dividends that this company has declared. So what that means is your preferred stockholders will get the entire $24,000 because you owed them $45,000. So the total amount that we're going to distribute to our preferred stockholders is the entire $24,000 of the dividends that was declared. Now we actually owed them $45,000. So what happens in year one is we'll have some dividends that are in arrears. We calculate that by subtracting the amount of the dividends that we owe to our preferred stockholders. We're going to subtract the $24,000 that we have paid to the stockholders from the amount that was owed. So we're going to subtract $24,000 from the $45,000, and that tells you how much we still owe to our preferred stockholders next year before we declare any dividends. This $21,000 is what we call dividends in arrears. So the reason we put $24,000 here is that when we calculated the total dividends that we owe to our preferred stockholders, which is $25,000. Those were the shares that were outstanding, times 2%, times $90 par value. That gives you how much was owed to our preferred stockholders. We owed $45,000, but we only paid $24,000. Since preferred stockholders have preference to dividends, in other words, we pay our dividends to our preferred stockholders before we pay our common stockholders. In this case, the preferred stockholders got everything that we declared during this period of time. So our common stockholders would get none. So remember, we have to enter a zero in if the amount is zero, as it is in this case. We cannot pay our common stockholders any dividends until we paid the total amount that we owe to our preferred stockholders first. The next thing that they're asking you for in this tabular column is to calculate the dividends per share that was paid to, in this case, the preferred stockholders, because they got all of the dividends. So what we'll do is we'll put in the total amount of the dividends that were paid to our preferred stockholders, which was $24,000. I'm going to simply divide this by the amount of preferred stock that was outstanding, which is 25,000, and that will give us our dividends per share, which is 96 cents. Because we gave common stockholders no dividends, our common dividends per share is also going to be 0. So what you have to remember is how much you owe to your preferred stockholders each year. And then if there are any dividends in arrears, you're going to have to add that amount to that. So before we can calculate the preferred dividends in year 2, I'm going to take you to an Excel spreadsheet, which will show you how I got the calculations. So bear with me for just a second. You should be seeing my Excel spreadsheet, and you might notice that I've got some notes up here at the top that are important. These are things that we just talked about a minute ago, so read over those. And also I've recorded for you in this spreadsheet the given information. You'll remember that the common stock shares that we had outstanding was 25,000. The preferred dividend rate was 2%. The par value of the preferred stock, let me write that in there for you so you'll know that this is preferred stock. Let me see if I can get it to look a little better there. Okay, I may have to clean that up a little bit. No, it's okay. All right, so the par value of the preferred stock is $90. You need to know that. You also need to know what the common shares of stock are that are outstanding. Again, all of this information was given to you in the Cengage problem. Also, we just went over the computations that show you how to calculate preferred stock dividends owed during the year. That calculation was the number of shares that were outstanding of preferred stock times the preferred dividend rate times the par value. And again, let me fix this for you. Okay, so the number of shares of outstanding preferred stock is going to be multiplied by the preferred dividend rate times the par value. That's how we got the 45,000. So 25,000 times 2% times $90 gives you $45,000. This is the amount that we owe to our preferred stockholders. Also, you might remember that the dividends that we owed to our preferred stockholders minus the dividends that we paid to the preferred stockholders will equal your dividends in arrears for preferred stockholders. So in our computations for year 1 that we already completed, we needed to know the amount that we owed to our preferred stockholders, which is this 45,000. We also needed to know the dividends paid in year 1. This amount is given to you in your problem. It was 24,000. So the dividends in arrears, the amount of dividends that we still owe to our preferred stockholders, is found by subtracting the 24,000 from the 45,000 to give you dividends in arrears for year one of 21,000. That's important information that we need to know before we can calculate the computations of dividends in year two. This is how much we owe from year one to our preferred stockholders. This part of the spreadsheet is showing you how we computed the dividends per share for the preferred stockholders in year one. Again, we already have done this in Cengage, but the dividends paid to the preferred stockholders in year one is going to be divided by the number of preferred stock shares outstanding, and that's going to equal the dividends per share for the preferred stockholders. The preferred stockholders got 96 cents as their dividends per share. I also have given you a notation here that says, I want you to remember that the common stockholders would not receive any dividends because the preferred stock dividends for this year was in arrears. So in other words, we still owe our preferred stockholders the 21,000, so we cannot give anything to our common stockholders yet. The computations for year two, we're going to start with the dividends that we owe to the preferred stockholders each year. Again, that was the preferred stock shares outstanding times the preferred dividend rate times the par value of the preferred stock. That's how we get the 45,000. We've calculated that several times, and we use this given information to help us with that. So each year we owe the preferred stockholders 45,000. Because we were unable to pay the entire 45,000 that we owed to our preferred stockholders in year one, we only could pay them what we declared, which was 24,000. So we're going to add the dividends in arrears from last year, from year one, 21,000, to the amount of the dividends that we owe this year, and the total amount of dividends that we owe to our preferred stockholders will be 66,000. In the Cengage problem, you need to know how much was declared in year two. The amount of dividends declared in year two was $10,000. Well, we owed our preferred stockholders a total amount of 66,000. So that means the preferred stockholders will get the entire 10,000 in dividends, and we still owe our preferred stockholders at the end of year two $56,000. That $56,000 is going to be carried forward into the next year's computations for calculating dividends. So the amount that we paid out in dividends was $10,000 because we owed our preferred stockholders in year two $66,000. We're going to pay all of the $10,000 to our preferred stockholders. So in Cengage, 10,000 would be entered into the tabular format for year two of the dividends that we actually paid to our preferred stockholders. We declared 10,000, we gave it all to our preferred stockholders. We also need to declare or show, the dividends per share for our preferred stockholders. We're going to take our $10,000 and we're going to divide that by the number of shares of preferred stock outstanding, which was 25,000 shares. And that will give you a dividend rate of 40 cents per share for our preferred stockholders. Again, the amount of dividends that we paid in this company, or we declared in this company, was 10,000. 10,000 of the dividends were paid to the preferred stockholders because we have to pay the preferred stockholders what we owe to them first. And because there was none left over, the common stockholders did not get any dividends, nor would they have a common dividends per share. So notice in year 3 that the amount of dividends that they declared has increased greatly to 126,000. So I'm going to flip back to our Excel spreadsheet, and we're going to look at what happened in year 3. Now remember, each year we owe our preferred stockholders $45,000. Last year, our dividends in arrears for year 2, we calculated at $56,000. So we owe our preferred stockholders $101,000. And since the dividends that our company declared was larger than $101,000, remember, it was $126,000 that we declared, we can pay our preferred stockholders the entire amount that we owe to them, which is $101,000. To calculate the dividends per share, what we will do is we will take the $101,000 dividends that we paid to our preferred stockholders, and we will divide this by the preferred stock that was outstanding, which was 25,000 that was given in this problem. So the amount per share that we have paid to our preferred stockholders is $4.04. Now notice this time, the amount that we paid to our preferred stockholders was less than the amount that we declared. In other words, we had some dividends left over that we can now give to our common stockholders. So we're going to take 126,000, that was our dividends declared. We're going to subtract out what we paid to our preferred stockholders, which was 101,000. And that will leave us with $25,000 that we actually paid in dividends to our common stockholders. We're going to take that $25,000 and we're going to divide it by the amount of shares that are outstanding of common stock. We've sold 100,000 shares. They're out there that we've already sold. Those are outstanding shares of stock. And we're going to divide this 25,000 by 100,000 shares of our common stock. And that will tell us the dividends per share that we paid to our common stockholders. All right, since in year 3, we paid our preferred stockholders all that we owed to them, in year 4, we're going to owe only the amount that we have calculated for our preferred stockholders. So in year 4, remember that the dividends that were owed to preferred stockholders each year is $45,000. So because we have paid $100,000, we're going to give that entire $45,000 to our preferred stockholders. That $45,000 is going to be divided by the number of shares of preferred stock outstanding, which is 25,000. That will give you $1.80 as our dividends per share that we paid to our preferred stockholders. Again, our company declared $100,000. $100,000 was declared in dividends. We paid $45,000 to our preferred stockholders. So we're going to back out $45,000 that we've already paid to preferred stockholders. Our common stockholders get the remaining amount. And to find the dividends per share on the common stockholders, we're going to take that $55,000 in dividends that we paid to our common stockholders, and we're going to divide it by 100,000 shares of our common stock. So 55 cents is our dividends per share that we pay to our common stockholders. Notice in year 5, the company declared $125,000 that it was going to pay to its stockholders. We have to pay our preferred stockholders first, and since there was no dividends left over in arrears, then we're going to pay them again the $45,000 that was owed to the preferred stockholders first. Again, the dividends per share would be calculated as $45,000 divided by 25,000, which gives you $1.80. What we have to determine is how much we paid to our common stockholders. The total amount that was declared was $125,000. We're going to subtract the $45,000 that was paid to the preferred stockholders, and the remaining amount of $80,000 we're going to pay to our common stockholders. To get the dividends per share, we're going to take $80,000 and we're going to divide it by our common stock shares outstanding, which was 100,000. And that will give us 80 cents as the common dividends per share. In the last year, our company declared $125,000. Our preferred stockholders get paid first. Since there were no dividends in arrears from year 5, we're going to pay our preferred stockholders the $45,000 that is owed to them each year. Again, the per share amount is $1.80. That's 45,000 divided by 25,000. That will give you $1.80. The remainder of the dividends, since we declared $125,000 in dividends in year 6, we're going to subtract out what we paid to our preferred stockholders. The remaining amount, again, is 80,000. And again, 80 cents is going to be our dividends per share. In other words, 80,000 divided by 100,000 is 80%, or 80 cents per share is the way we would state that. The next thing we need to do is just add up our column for our preferred dividends per share. And in year one, it was 96 cents. We're going to add year two to that, which was 40 cents. In year three, it was 404. In year four, it was $1.80. In year five, it was $1.80. And in year six, it was $1.80. In other words, I'm adding this column up, the per share column for our preferred dividends, and I'm going to get a total amount of $10.80. I'm going to do the same thing for my common dividends. I'm going to take the common dividends per share and add all of those together. The total amount is $2.40. Now I'm going to move to the next part of the problem, which is part two. And they want you to determine the average annual dividend per share for each class of stock for the 6-year period. They want you to round your answers to 2 decimal places. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my total preferred dividends that were paid during that 6-year period. The total amount at the end of 6 years was $10.80. I'm going to divide that by the 6-year period, and that will give you 16 cents rounded. Okay, let me try that again. I'm going to take my $10.80 and I'm going to divide it by 6 years, and that will give you, $1.80. That's the correct amount that they want in the box in Cengage. To find the average annual dividends for common stock, we're going to take $2.40. That was the total amount of common dividends for the 6-year period. $2.40 is going to be divided by 6 years, and that will give you 40 cents as the average annual dividend for common stock. In the last part of this problem, they're telling you to assume a market price of $100 for the preferred stock and $5 market price for the common stock. They want you to calculate the average annual percentage return on the initial shareholders' investment. And it's based on the average annual dividend per share that we calculated before. The average annual dividend per share for preferred stock was $1.80. And they want you to do it also for the common stock. So I'm going to flip for just a minute back to the Excel spreadsheet that I prepared for you for this problem. I'm going to scroll to the bottom for just a minute. We're going to look at requirement number 3. Notice the average annual dividend per share of preferred stock is going to be divided by the market price of preferred stock to get the average return on your investment. So what we did is we took what we got for the average dividend per share for the preferred stockholders, which was $1.80. We're going to divide that by $100, the market price, and that's how you get $1.80. So I'm going to switch back to Cengage, and we're going to put in $1.80 as our percent for preferred stockholders. For common stockholders, we're going to do it the same way, except you have to remember that the common stock had a market price of $5 and their dividend per share was 40 cents to start with. So 40 cents divided by $5 will give you 8%. And that's how we complete this problem. So I'm going to stop our recording. And we'll see you next time.